Well, finding a new starting center has become a 49ers offseason tradition. They tried to sign a center for the long term back in 2018 in Weston Richburg, and for a little while it worked. Richburg played 15 games in 2018, and then he played 13 games in 2019. But then you remember in that epic win against the Saints in the Superdome, the 48-46 victory, Jimmy Garoppolo throwing for nearly 400 yards, and George Kittle reenacting WrestleMania on the very same field where he had attended WrestleMania. Well, Weston Richburg tore his patellar tendon. And ever since then, it's been a total mess at the 49ers center position, really with the exception of the 2021 season when they had Alex Mack. But Alex Mack has retired, and Jake Brendel is the early favorite to replace Alex Mack as the 49ers center. That's what I wrote about today. The article is right up there on the screen. I'm going to copy and paste the link to that piece into the chat section so you guys can all have a read. It's $1 a month right now for The Athletic in the chat section, and then pinned up on the comment section for those of you watching later. You have the article on Jake Brendel, what the 49ers like about him. Who the hell is he? Because I think a lot of people just kind of let this name float under the radar. He's been in the league for a while. He's going to turn 30 in September, but Jake Brendel may just be having his first legitimate opportunity to start. He definitely is the early favorite, though, to start, and I'm going to explain here throughout the course of this video. And if you use that article, obviously, as your basis, you're going to find out what the 49ers like about Brendel and how important this center position is to their offense. So finding a new center has become that annual 49ers tradition, and another 49ers tradition, especially under Kyle Shanahan, but this is something that actually stretches further back into franchise history, is the need for athleticism up front. The 49ers of the 1990s, and let's go back to the 1980s, back when Bob McKittrick was the offensive line coach, were famous for employing lighter offensive linemen. Movement was important to McKittrick. He wanted linemen to get out in space. He wanted them to pull. He wanted them to be athletic. And the rest of the NFL really liked bulky, those Hulk kind of guys that couldn't really move, but maybe they could anchor a little bit better in pass protection. Maybe they could power block a little bit better in a closed out scrum. But the 49ers have been about the athletic offensive linemen for quite some time. Now, they might have gone away from that a little bit, right, in the era between McKittrick and Shanahan. But I think Joe Staley provided a hell of a bridge. Joe Staley was one of the most athletic linemen of all time, a track star in high school, and he was with the team from 2007 until 2019. So that really spanned 2007 was the Mike Nolan era. So that spanned the Nolan era. Singletary was the coach there for a while. You had Harbaugh, obviously, with Joe Staley. Then he went to the dark ages of Jim Tomsula and Chip Kelly, and finally made it out on the other end to the Shanahan era, where the 49ers started getting really, really athletic on the offensive line. Well, Jake Brendel is notably athletic. In this piece, I have the spider chart. We'll zoom down to it. There you go. 20-yard shuttle, 3-cone drill, broad jump, 40-yard dash, all in the 90th percentile or above for Jake Brendel coming out of college at UCLA in 2016. But you do see that part of the spider chart doesn't really fill out. And the biggest knock out of Brendel coming out of college was that he was too light. You'll see here in the weight category, 3rd percentile. This spider chart is based on Brendel's measurements during the pre-draft process in 2016 when he was leaving UCLA. He only weighed 286 pounds there. He looked like a tight end. I had his Wikipedia page up yesterday during the live, so I'm going to open that back up again. But this picture of Jake Brendel from UCLA should really illustrate the lack of size that he was working with coming out of college. That's him at UCLA. You could see he looks thin. He looks like a bigger tight end, but he's got 6'4" height. He's got the arm length isn't elite for Jake Brendel, but he's no longer 286 pounds. He now weighs a solid 299, so 300. There he is working in the preseason for the 49ers last year. So the arms have gotten bigger, the base has gotten bigger, and the biggest concern for Jake Brendel coming out of that 2016 college class, the size has been alleviated. And if you talk to the 49ers, they think that he's maintained that excellent athleticism. They think that he's maintained the bottom half of this spider chart. And you need that athleticism to perform in this 49ers offensive line and outside zone system, because it's about getting the spots, making difficult blocks as a center. The reason the 49ers got Weston Richburg is because they thought that when he was healthy, he could execute some of those really challenging blocks that a lot of centers can't execute in the run game. And Kyle Shanahan is going to really call for excellent athleticism and creativity up front to make it happen from the center position. Otherwise, the whole rest of the offensive line doesn't work. Add on top of that the fact that the center is in charge of all the block setting responsibilities. He's calling out the protections, the line of scrimmage, and it's a loaded job. So it's no surprise that people are interested in what the 49ers are going to do to succeed Alex Mack, who's one of the great centers of this century in the NFL. Was on the all-decades team in the 2010s, played for Kyle Shanahan in Cleveland, then he played for Kyle Shanahan in Atlanta, and then he played for Kyle Shanahan for one season with the 49ers. One thing that I address in the article is that, no, the 49ers were not taken by surprise by Alex Mack's retirement. The 49ers knew around free agency that Alex Mack was leaning that way. They were holding out hope that he would change his mind, but they decided way back in March that they weren't going to go out and try to sign somebody else. So I'll pop this name up on the screen, J.C. Tretter. That's the one that everybody always asks me about. And hey, I wrote an article about it because it was reasonable to at least examine this situation. But the 49ers, it's not like they were, caught with their pants down here with Alex Mack leaving. The 49ers knew that Mack was likely retiring, and they realized that they have players that they like, especially Jake Brendel on the roster, who they think they could promote from within to take over the center position. So they decided not to sign a big name in free agency. They signed only Keaton Sutherland on March 8th. That was before the big wave of free agency. He's played 17 snaps of center in his NFL career. That was last season for the Cincinnati Bengals. So Sutherland is not a realistic starting candidate. He's depth at the position, but Jake Brendel is. And J.C. Tretter, well, it was worth the speculation, right? Just as we needed something to talk about, I guess, for a little while that didn't involve Deebo Samuel. But J.C. Tretter, while he's been extremely durable in terms of games played over the past 5 seasons, he hasn't missed a single game, 82 out of 82 for the Cleveland Browns. He has missed a ton of practice time due to ongoing knee issues. So at some point, practice time probably is going to turn into missed game time. But one of the big things for the 49ers has been the need to surround Trey Lance with close to perfect continuity. The 49ers even overhauled their coaching staff this year in an effort to establish just that around Trey Lance. Every single position coach, except for Chris Foerster, the offensive line coach, is new. Anthony Lynn, new running backs coach. He's going to emphasize that power run game. That should help the surroundings of Trey Lance. Leonard Hankerson, former Shanahan receiver in charge of the receiver room, they are looking for attention to detail and specificity out of those receivers to take the burden out of Trey Lance, so he knows exactly how many steps the guy's going to take. He can anticipate how deep somebody's going to be. They don't want any inconsistency as far as route running. And the same thing has been applied to the tight ends room, where Brian Fleury is now the new coach. Well, Brian Fleury hasn't even coached tight ends before, but he's coached seemingly every other position group, and he knows where every single player is supposed to be. That attention to detail from Fleury, the brainiac type, they're trying to port that over to route running at the tight end position, and they hope that's going to help Trey Lance. Well, along the same lines, they don't want to start flipping centers on Trey Lance every single day of the week because a guy like J.C. Tretter can't practice. This is really, really important. And when you're talking about center continuity with the quarterback, well, Trey Lance and Jake Brendel worked together throughout almost all of 2021. Remember that Jake Brendel earned his way onto the 49ers 53-man roster last season. The 49ers obviously signed Alex Mack. He was going to be the starter, but everybody was wondering, what will the 49ers do about a backup center? And Daniel Brunskill had started 8 games there in 2020. So the common thought during training camp was like, Daniel Brunskill, utility offensive lineman, he might be your starting right guard, but just in case something happens, you could kick him into center, and Aaron Banks could step in at right guard. That didn't end up happening last year. Obviously, Mack also didn't end up getting hurt, but the 49ers, had Mack gotten hurt, Jake Brendel would have been their man. He impressed the 49ers in training camp to the point of making the 53-man roster. And because he made that 53-man roster, because he was with them all season long, he was a second stringer. So was Trey Lance. that means that Lance and Brendel worked together throughout almost all of 2021, with the exception being when Lance had to start in place of Jimmy Garoppolo. So that's one avenue of familiarity that is absolutely huge. And when you talk about a guy like Treader, who might not be able to provide the familiarity that the 49ers want. Yes, he blocked in an outside zone in Cleveland. Yes, he's put up good marks for the past 5 years. But that lack of practice time potentially, if he did join the 49ers, that's something I think that the 49ers view as a potential concern. And this, the fact that Lance and Brendel work together, they view as a potential boon. So one avenue of familiarity is this. Here's another avenue of familiarity. 49ers O-line coach Chris Foerster worked with Brendel in Miami and recommended him to the 49ers. Brendel came out as a 286-pounder from UCLA in 2016. Hence, he was undrafted despite the good athleticism scores. And then he was with the Dolphins from 2016 to 2018. Foerster was his coach there at the start of that time. And Chris Foerster really, really likes Jake Brendel. So he recommended him to the 49ers in 2020. Brendel signed. He opted out of 2020 due to COVID concerns. But then he impressed everybody when he showed up in 2021 and won that roster spot. In fact, it got to the point where Kyle Shanahan has said that Foerster promised a lot, but Brendel's actually over-delivered on those promises. So the two avenues of familiarity have the 49ers bullish on Brendel. Through Foerster first, their offensive line coach back from 2016 to 2017, and then through Trey Lance, because Lance and Brendel worked together almost all of last season. Trent Williams commented that talking to Brendel about the playbook is almost like talking to a coach, which is really important. The center has to be really, really football smart. You don't have to be crazy book smart, although it helps. And 49ers centers here in the past have been brainiacs. I mean, Alex Mack, obviously, Cal guy. I'll give Cal the tip of the hat, but Alex Mack was a very, very smart football player. And that center's got a lot of responsibility. Chris Foerster explained it to me a couple weeks ago. The center, and this is something I've written about for a couple of years. I talked to Chris Dahlman, former 49ers center, back in the day with Steve Young. The footwork's really important. You guys remember the catch, too, with Terrell Owens? Steve Young tripped over Chris Dahlman's foot. And there's still a debate to this day about whose fault that was. But I think it was Steve Young's fault based on everybody that I talk about. Chris Dahlman got blamed for it, but Steve Young, apparently his footwork was a little bit different on the play, so he stumbled over Chris Dahlman's foot. But it just goes to show you that center chemistry is extremely important. You have to be on the same page. You have to be in lockstep with your center as the quarterback, especially when you're literally lining up for snaps under center, because one false step can turn into a sack. And that almost turned into a sack during what would have been the most devastating possible time for the 49ers when Steve Young dropped back to pass before regaining his balance and throwing to Terrell Owens, and they finally beat the Green Bay Packers. But Dahlman, I mean, he would talk to me about identifying safety rotations. You get down in that crouch and you have to look up, and not only do you have to set the protection for the line of scrimmage, you also have to essentially set the protection for the larger offense, and you have to be able to see through the defense, and you have to see what those safeties are looking like as far as their rotations, because they're going to clue you in onto how you should react as an offense. And that's a lot of responsibility, and it's responsibility that the center position has in the 49ers offense. And Foerster was showing me just a couple weeks ago, he said, a lot of offensive linemen can probably execute what the center needs to execute pre-snap if they're just sitting in the film room. But then he got up, and Foerster got down into the crouch position, into a snapping position. He said, all of a sudden, your line of sight, your line of sight would be right here if you're just sitting down. But if you're crouched down, it's going to come down to here. And it's a bigger difference standing up versus coming down to here and getting ready to snap the football. And all of a sudden, you're crouched down and you're looking at the defense with 300-pound defensive tackles in front of you, linebackers roaming around, everything's moving, the crowd is roaring, and you're looking at it from a low vantage point, and you have to be able to identify safety rotations. You have to be able to diagnose the defense to the point of prescribing a certain blocking alignments. You're in a position where you have to do something very difficult from an unnatural vantage point. And that's where it's tough to be a center. And that's where experience is required. So the fact that Trent Williams said something like this about Jake Brendel, it's almost like talking to a coach. That's important because he's got to know the offense like the back of his hand, because once the bullets start flying, once he's in that chaotic situation in the crouch, getting ready to snap the football, diagnosing the defense, he can't be, starting to think about, oh, wait, what was that play? What's this protection? He's got to know it like the back of his hand. And the 49ers coaching staff and Trent Williams, everybody that I've talked about Jake Brendel, does know the offense like the back of his hand. The 49ers like to promote from within. So we're seeing this very dynamic in the Jake Brendel situation. No, he hasn't been anointed the starter yet. In fact, Daniel Brunskill is also in contention for this job if somebody else can take the right guard job, somebody like Spencer Burford, the rookie. But assuming that Daniel Brunskill starts at right guard, which is probably going to be the case, Brendel's on the inside track for the center position. The 49ers have a short-term plan here, and they have a long-term plan here. The long-term plan involves their draft picks. They beefed up the position. Nick Zakel out of Fordham, he could potentially play center in the future. He's really smart, even though he was a tackle in college. They're looking at him as a guard and as potentially as a center. Jason Poe, who I've been talking about a lot lately. There's going to be a video coming up on Jason Poe. He's a potential center prospect in the future. And Donovan West, undrafted free agent. He played center at Arizona State under Herm Edwards, who is friends with John Lynch. Whoever plays center, and it's likely going to be Brendel, he's the early favorite. There's a balancing act of the 49ers offensive line. You have to have anchor strength at lower movement-focused weights. So even though you're lighter, so that you can move and you can block out in space, you have to be able to anchor. Alex Mack was able to do that, and he gave the 49ers a solid season at center. But 20 games later, his body said he's calling it quits. He said, that's enough. I don't know if I have enough in the tank to go one more time, because he's already played 13 NFL seasons. So no season number 14 for Alex Mack. And now the 49ers must find a delicate balance that you see listed there on your screen. Anchor strength at lower movement-focused weights. That is the great dilemma that the 49ers are searching for. And yes, their interior offensive line, I don't think, has been good enough to win a Super Bowl, especially over the past 3 years when they've been in better contention. Obviously, 2020 injuries knocked them out. But in 2019 and 2021, you saw Aaron Donald eat the 49ers alive on the inside. 2021 especially, that's how they met their demise. In 2019, yeah, Donald had some success against the 49ers, but it was other very powerful interior defensive linemen, such as Chris Jones, that ultimately derailed the 49ers in Super Bowl 54. So maintaining rigidity and pass protection up front is absolutely key as the 49ers turn the page to Trey Lance. Have they done enough up front? Well, the 49ers think that they've, established their starting offensive line. They think that they're going to have, in all likelihood, Trent Williams at left tackle. Trent Williams is a certainty. I'm talking about the group as likelihood. On all likelihood, Aaron Banks at left guard. Jake Brendel is the favorite at center. Daniel Brunskill is the favorite at right guard, although an upgrade is possible if Spencer Burford blows somebody away during training camp. And Mike McGlinchey back in the fold after recovering from his torn quad at right tackle. Then all the draft picks and the undrafted free agent signings, the 49ers believe that they've bolstered depth along the offensive line. You can say that it's not enough. You can say that it's enough. Either way, you're just speculating. We don't know it's enough because development's happening right now. The 49ers are trying to make the pieces fit together right now, and they think that they're going to be able to operate well in front of Trey Lance. We'll see, though. It's a major question for me. I've been skeptical, but I'm also receptive to what they're doing because the 49ers have had success in building a powerful roster in general over the course of the past few seasons. So Brendel's going to be a big part of the effort, and it's another we'll see kind of situation because it's a new battery, right? It's a new center, and it's a new quarterback for the 49ers moving into 2022. Trey Lance and Jake Brendel, in all likelihood, both of those guys, right? With Trey Lance, I think, being more of a certainty than Brendel. But you see here why the 49ers do like Jake. Anyway, $1 a month for The Athletic. I know more of you have filtered in. I'm going to be headed up to the facility here in a few minutes. So I posted the link again into the chat section. It's going to be pinned up there in the comment section. Check that out. It's a big, big scouting report. Who the heck is Jake Brendel? Why do the 49ers like him? I guarantee you, you'll be smarter after reading it. You'll know what the 49ers are thinking about this whole situation after reading it. And yes, I do address J.C. Tretter in that article. So you can go ahead and read why the 49ers did not sign J.C. Tretter. All right, guys. Here's the big question. I'll put a couple of these comments up there. Brendel started only 3 games of his career. Can he start 17 this year? Maybe even 20, if the 49ers go all the way. We'll see. That's the big question. That's what the 49ers have to answer moving forward. Again, it's okay to say we don't know, but I'm outlining what the 49ers are thinking. All right, guys. Yeah, do we hit 15K today? Did we hit 15K? Let me see. YouTube. Let's see. Let's go to YouTube Studio. Let me take this right now. I don't want to show you guys my studio page, so I'll close it. We'll open this up. YouTube Studio is popping open. Our channel dashboard. No, we haven't hit it yet. We're at 14,988. It would be really cool to hit 15,000 while I'm online. So I don't think it's going to happen. 12 is a lot to get here, especially since I'm signing off in a couple minutes. But we are 12 away from 15K, which is a big deal since we've only been doing this for about a year. So hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. I'll refresh the page. Maybe we'll be up to 14,989 right now if somebody hits that subscribe button, because we're only 12 away from 15K. And yeah, it'd be super cool to hit this while I'm on the air, but I'm not going to hold my breath, because if I held my breath, probably die here. It's probably going to take a little bit longer than just a few minutes. All right, everybody, subscribe to The Athletic. That article is in the comment section and in the chat section right now. It's $1 a month, and subscribe to the channel as well. Double subscription gets you bonus points. Really appreciate everybody. Take care. Hope you enjoyed today's video about Jake Brendel. We'll talk to you all soon.